You're live. Okay.
Are we live?
Yeah, we are.
Yo, what's up? What's happening, everyone? I don't have my intro music on. I'm doing my old school format for live streams now. No more intro music and yapping about stuff. This is going to be old school Beato lecture of right into the meat of things here. So I have Carol who's moderating it. She's going to take questions from you. She'll go through them and pick ones that are pertinent to our discussion today. But we're going to talk about what chord is this. Now, I have a lot of discussion on both my channels, my channel here and my Rick Beato live channel that I go on at nighttime, my other YouTube channel, where we talk about naming of chords. And Carol and I talked about this. One of the discussions came up the other night when we were talking about a particular chord and the way that it's written. So I want to talk about naming conventions because there's a lot of different ways to name chords. And what this is good for is if you're writing tunes, if you're writing charts for people, you want to write things that people are going to just understand. You want to be as clear as possible. You also want to be able to read things when you have a chord chart and it has alterations on a dominant chord or an alterations on a major chord or something like that and know what they mean, okay? What is the difference between a fourth and an 11th? What is the difference between a ninth and a second? What's the difference between a sixth and a 13th? I'm going to answer all those right now. Okay. The first chord, are we on actually, Carol? Are the people on? Because I can't see because I'm just looking at the...
People are saying hi.
Hey, everybody. Okay, so the first chord here is this. I'm going to play it for you. It's this chord. Now that chord, those of you that listen to Steely Dan might have heard that chord. So you've got B, A, D, G. Okay, so right here. Now, if I look at that, I can say, well, it's possibly some type of a B chord, or could it be another chord? Okay, so for those of you that don't read notes, I'll write down here. So it's B on the bottom, right? A, D, G. Okay? If we call this chord based on its root, I would call this a few different things. I might call it B minor 7, sharp 5. That will give me that specific voicing possibly. I could call it a B, or an A quartal. This is some of my own nomenclature, A quartal over B. When I say quartal, I mean this is two perfect fourths right here. Perfect fourth between A and D, perfect fourth between D and G. So this gives you an A, because it's based off A Q for quartal, okay? That's a shorthand that I've been using for 30 years. There's my quartal structure, built in fourths over B. Now, if I take those notes and rearrange them, let's say I take that B and move it up the octave, and kind of scrunch it together, I get this chord here. Well, somebody might say, that sounds like a G add 9, or that sounds like an add 9 chord, which it is. So this chord could really also be called G add 9 over B, okay, in first inversion. Okay, so I'm going to say G add 9 over B. So it's a first inversion G add 9 chord. Now, if you say B minor 7 sharp 5, some people will use that nomenclature there, or they might do it here like this, B with a minus 7 sharp 5. Minus means minor, okay? B minor 7 sharp 5. The problem with this is that in the scale that this comes from, if you take the scale, it's really, that is a B Aeolian scale, okay? So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That note G there is really the flat 6, okay? But since there is no fifth in the chord, you don't call it a flat 6. So you could say a sharp 5, and it's ambiguous. If I put this note in the chord, though, check this out. If I put a major third in there, this note becomes a sharp 5, or a flat 13. We're going to talk about that in a minute, okay? But the chord is ambiguous, could be construed as ambiguous, but it's really not. A quartal over B is actually the most, to me, the most correct name, and will give you the exact voicing. If I'm playing with somebody and I want them to play that chord, you'll hear that chord through the Asia record of Steely Dan. You'll hear that chord in pop music all the time. It gets used constantly. It's really common. You use it as a first inversion major chord, but to put color, here's a first inversion G major chord, but you don't want to double the root, so you put that ninth in there, and it sounds really cool. That would resolve if you go, it would go to C major, or it could go to C sus2 in pop music, okay? So this chord here, I would go with, personally, A quartal over B, or you could call it modally B Aeolian, but that is a more exact chord. You don't want to call it B minor 7 flat 6, because you don't have a fifth in it. If I put this note in here, this F sharp, then you say, oh, it's definitely B minor 7 flat 6. But without that information, all you have to go off of is this. I call it A Q over B, A quartal over B, okay? Next chord here, okay, it starts with a C, B flat. For those of you that don't read, C, B flat, E, A. E, whoa, A, hold on. Drop my marker, E, A, okay? C, B flat. Okay, that is a C13 chord. Now, I would just say C13. Now, some people will write it like this. You'll see it in charts as this, C7 with the parentheses and the 13 on it like that, okay? Now, if it has a 13, the reason I just write C13 is because anytime you have an extension, an upper extension like that, meaning above the octave, so 9th, 11th, or 13, automatically means that there's a 7th in the chord. If it's a C13, it means there's a B flat in it, a flat 7. If it's C major 13, then it means that there's a C major 7th with a 13, okay? So that would be a different chord. It would sound, that would be this chord. It would be this. Okay? Now, why is it a 13th? Well, because if you take a scale, if I take a C major scale here, or C Mixolydian scale, which it comes from, so here's your chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This note is the 13th, and it's 13 scale degrees above the root of the chord. Okay, that's why it's called the 13th. That's why it's not called the 6th. If it was called the 6th, it would have this note in it. Okay, this is it's determined by the octave that it's in. If it's above the octave, it becomes a 13th or an upper extension. When you hear that term, extended tone, upper extension, that term means that it's above the octave. Okay. Okay. So the next chord here, this is a close position chord. This would be the notes A, C sharp, D, E, A, C sharp, D, E. I'm going to write it down for those of you that don't know how to spell these. A, C sharp, D, E. Okay? Well, if you take the chord and you look at it, you say, the first thing you should say, does it have any type of triad in it? Okay, well, it does. A, C sharp, E. So right in the middle of this is a A major chord, and it has this extra note there, that D. Now, if any of you see the term S-U-S, sus, that stands for suspended. Now, some people think it means sustained. I don't know why, but you know now that it means suspended. This, I call, there's a few different things you'll see this written as. I will say it's either an A sus 4, 3, meaning it's got the sus 4 and the major third in it. You could also write A major add 4. Okay? The reason I don't do that is because I don't want to spell major out necessarily. And if I just write A add 4, you're thinking, well, A what add 4? That's why this is actually a better descriptor. A sus 4 3. Okay, you could say A sus 4 add 3 is the other way. A sus 4, then put add 3. Now, why is this bad? Because it takes up too much room. And if you're writing a chart, there's too much information. You don't need this. It's too long of a term. That's why I use the diagonal line, and I just put the two different notes that are in it. It tells you it's an A sus 4 here with that added third in it. Now, you'll see that there's tunes that you'll hear voicings like that. I'm just thinking like that's from Asia, from the tune Asia from Steely Dan. That's the chord that they solo over. Wayne Shorter solos over it. And it's that particular voicing, I believe, is that A sus 4 3 over B, and it becomes like a B minor 11 with 9, B minor 9 11 chord, okay? So if I actually put the B in there, and down on the bass here, did that, then I would change that chord to, you could do this, A sus 4 3 over B, or it could be B minor, could do minus for minor. I could write M-I-N, minus is shorter though, B minor 9 11, okay? So if I put the B in there, whoops, just lost my thing there. So you got B, there's your flat 7, there's your 9, there's your minor third, and there's your 11. Why is it a 9 and an 11? I'll tell you why. If you count the scale, I'll do it this way. If you go up the scale from here, from this B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is the C sharp, 10, 11 is the E. So it's 11 scale degrees away from the root. Okay, 11 notes away above the root. If it were in the same octave, it would be called something different. Now, you couldn't voice the chord quite like that in the same octave. If I voiced it like this, that's the same collection of notes, but that actually has a different sound, and that would be a different name. We'll talk about that after. Let's talk about the next chord here. So we've got D, then F, B, E. So D, F, B, E. So it sounds like this. Then I'll do the low F, B, E. Okay, so let's look at these notes. This F is a minor third or a flat third. The B is could be the 13, and then E could be the 9, okay? This is a kind of a unique situation here because this is actually a very, very common chord voicing. Most people will call this D minor 6 9, and they will write it like these. D like this, D minor 6 / 9. You could write it D minor 9 13 also, okay? Because of you could write D minor 13 9, right? Usually write the higher number later. Even though it appears in the chord, that note appears earlier than the 9th, which is why we call it a 6 9, okay? Even if your bass note is way down here and you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, that B is 13 notes, 14, 15, 16, you don't use 16, you'd only use up to the 13, okay? That's pretty much as far as we use with extensions, typically. This, you just have to know this minor 6 9 is a common term for that. So some of these things you just have to memorize, okay? If you see a minor 6 9 chord, you know what it is. That's a very, very common sound that is used. It's used in blues, it's used in rock music, it's used in jazz. If you're the Doors or something, they'll play minor 6 9 chords. It's used in modern classical music. All these chords are used, you'll use it in film scoring, you'll use it any big band charts, anything. Very, very common chord there, D minor 6/9. Next chord here, this is a little bit more complex. This gets more into my kind of theory of modal sounds. Now this is, I've got the notes A, G, C, D, and F sharp, okay? The A is the root, the G is the flat 7, okay? So A, G, C, D, F sharp. Okay, if I count from here up the scale, this is the flat 7, okay? So it's a minor 7th interval. So you have your flat 7 here, flat 7. The C is the minor 3rd, so flat 3. The D is the 11. Why is it the 11? Because it's 11 scale degrees away from the root. If you go like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then 12, 13 is the F sharp. So this is the 11 here, this is the 13. Okay, so this chord is A minor 11, 13 is one possible way of naming this chord. A minor 11, 13, like that. Now, I call it something different because I want that particular voicing, because some people might play it, you know, they could play I could play it like this, I guess. I could play it like this. If I had that voicing, I might voice it like that. Let's say if I played it in strings. So I call this chord here, I take the top half of the chord and I call it a G major 7 sus4, because if you take a G major 7th chord, G, B, D, F sharp, and I suspend the 3rd up a half step to C, I get a G sus4, G major 7 sus4 over A. That's a very specific way to spell the chord where you'll get that exact voicing from someone. If I saw G major 7 sus4 over A, boom, you know I'm going to play that chord voicing, okay? So that is a more descriptive. So it'd be G major 7 sus4 over A. Okay, that will give me this exact voicing. That's a very descriptive. That's what I want to have. You could write this A minor 11 and you put the 13 in parentheses. You'll see sometimes people will write A minor with the 11 on the top and the 13 below it in parentheses. This to me is just easier to see. A minor 11, 13. Okay. Or if somebody wrote that for me, I would play that sound anyway. If they simply wrote A minor 13, I would know that they wanted that type of sound. Minor 13. I might not put I might just play this and leave out the D. Da. So if I wrote A minor 13, I would probably leave out the D. But this has that D. Da, 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 da. That's a great sound. It's very, very modern modal sound. I'd call it an A-Dorian sound because it comes from the Dorian mode. The Dorian mode has that F sharp in there, has that 11 in it, you know. This is really a perfect Dorian sound. Okay, let's talk about this chord over here. So that chord is this. Let's see. You get A flat. Now, some of you might recognize that right off the bat and say, oh, that's just an A flat 7, flat 5 chord. If you were to play it on guitar, for those of you that are guitar players, and you played this chord like this. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. What did I write? Is E? I wrote E, so wait. I'm sorry, A flat 7, sharp 5. Okay, so we were having this debate the other day about sharp 5s versus flat 13s, okay? So the when do you call it a flat 13 and when do you call it a sharp 5? Now that's a really interesting question because we're going to talk about the sharp 5s and the flat 5s right now and when you use those. This actually gets kind of confusing, okay? In this voicing, this particular note, the E here, if you count this, if you take the scale and I play, there's a couple different scales I can play on this, but let's say I take this particular scale. If I take A flat mixolydian sharp 11, okay, so you have the G flat and so you got A flat, B flat, C, D, E. I'm sorry. If I do A flat whole tone, which will have those notes in it, A flat, B flat, C, D, E flat, G flat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, then it starts. That's the whole tone scale. Well, that whole tone scale has the 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, sharp 5, flat 7. Okay. You could also have the altered dominant scale that works with that chord. Okay, that altered dominant scale would be would have the flat 9, sharp 9, flat 5, sharp 5 in it. Okay, so it's still going to act as a sharp 5. If you had a scale that if you had the altered dominant scale and were to write the notes out from 1 being A flat, you'd have the altered dominant scale as 1, flat 2, flat 3, flat 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7, okay? This is where it gets tricky. These notes like the sharp 5s can be flat 13s and they can be sharp 5s both, okay? This is confusing. In the altered scale, because theoretically, the 6th note of the scale, okay, is going to be, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, flat 9, sharp 9, major 3rd, right? Then there's your sharp 4, sharp 5, flat 7, and repeats. But really, it's 1, flat 2, flat 3, flat 4, that major 3rd, even though it sounds like a major 3rd, flat 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7. Okay, so this is an instance where you could actually call it an A flat 7, sharp 5, or you can call it an A flat 7 or an A flat 7, flat 13. You could call it that. Typically, I'm going to call it just A flat 7, sharp 5. And the reason that I call it that is that most people will just call it that because the this note here, this E, is actually the sharp 5th. Okay, if you think of an A flat major chord, A flat, C, E flat. A flat augmented is A flat, C, E natural. That's a sharp 5. So the basic triad of that is an augmented triad, okay? It can function as a flat 13 if you had more information in the chord. If you had the flat 9 in there, if you had the sharp 9 in there or something, then you say, oh, it's altered, and then maybe a flat 13, because this is 13 notes away, theoretically. Right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 notes. I played the A flat altered dominant scale, 13 notes, and I got the sharp 5th, or I got the flat 13. So that is one of these cases where it's tricky. But with only this much information, with the root, flat 7, the 3rd, and the sharp 5, I would just call this A flat 7, sharp 5. Okay? Now, when do you call things, here's the tricky thing. When do you say something is a sharp 11, and when do you say something is a flat 5? Because the sharp 11 and flat 5 can sound like the same note. Well, if I take it, I'll do it on guitar, because you can see this for those of you who play. So let's say I play this chord here. Okay, this note here, this note D sharp, is possibly the sharp 11. I don't necessarily have all the information, or if I played this, if I made it a dominant chord, just like the last one, but this is a dominant, this would be a dominant flat 5, you could say, or dominant sharp 11. Okay, well, how do I know? Well, I'd have to actually map out the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that note, because it's got the fifth in it, anything that has a fifth in the scale, if you're going to call it a sharp 11, okay? You're not going to call it a sharp 4 because it's an octave up. So anytime you have a fifth in the scale and you have that raised fourth degree in the chord, it's going to be a sharp 11. If I played whole tone over that, it'd be a flat, it could be a flat 5, it'd still be a sharp 4 really, but I'm trying to think of instances. With this much description of the chord, if I just have root, flat 7, third, and flat 5 in it, it's hard to tell whether it's a flat 5 or sharp 11. But typically, depending on the scale, if you have a fifth in the scale, you're going to call it a sharp 11. Now, when do you have things that are like sus4s and sus2s? Okay, this is a great question. I get asked this all the time. Let's say I take a simple C sus2 chord. Okay, C, D, G. This is called C sus2. Oh, by the way, my Beato book is on sale. So is my 104-page YouTube transcription bundle. 30% off with this code. CK876.
Did we make it 40%?
No. Oh, and
Right,
my 2 courses, Advanced Harmonic Concepts and Mastering Modes of the Major Scale, are 40% off right now till midnight. Right there. Anybody that buys my book at this price, even when the second version of the book comes out in the next month or so, it's going to be pay what you want. So this is the time to get it, is now. Okay, C sus2. By the way, I don't want to harp on this stuff because I don't want to be selling stuff all the time. But when I do these, what makes this song great stuff, I tell, you guys have all heard my spiel on that. All these videos get demonetized, so I don't make any money from views on them. And I get a lot of views from them. So I depend on people buying stuff. You can also donate to my channel. There's a donate button on my rickbeato.com. Or I have an album that's $10. You can buy my album it's all classical pieces. You'll dig it, I think. Okay, C sus2. Okay, well this is really pretty obvious. It's a sus2 because the D is the second degree of the scale. Let's say it's a C major scale. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you got 1, 2, 5 here. 1, 2, 5. This is the fifth. This is the second. That's the C. That's the root. Now, if you have this though, C, G, D. These are called open fifths. This would be really a C sus 9. Okay? Or you would call it a C sus2 spread triad. But I call it either a C sus 9, or I call it C quintal. I use it QN. Quintal means 2/5, perfect fifth, P5, P5 between these two notes. Here, P5. There's 2 perfect fifths. C to G is a perfect fifth, G to D is a perfect fifth, okay? But C sus 9 is perfectly acceptable and very, very easy because you're going to say, okay, it's a sus2, but if you count the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 notes away from the root is that. Now, the same thing happens if it's a C sus 4, okay? Everybody following here, Carol? I almost said Michelle. C, F, G. This is C sus 4. right? You get the same. So you got 1, 4, 5. You got the fourth note of the scale, the root, the fourth note of the scale, fifth note of the scale. If I take that F and move it up the octave, the sus4, that would be an open sus triad, okay? That note would be the 11, okay, because it's 11 notes away from the root. So I call it a C. This note, this would be C, G, F, C, sus with the 11, okay? If I count the scale degrees, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 notes away from the root. This is how these extensions work. Sharp nines and flat nines work the same way. If you have a C7 flat nine, you know, I'll do it just in one octave. C, E, G, B flat. There's your C7 chord right here, right? C7. And if I go up and I put a D flat here, that becomes the flat nine. If I put a D sharp, right? D sharp in this chord would be the sharp nine. Okay? Whoops, I put this sharp key. Sorry about that. D sharp is the sharp nine. Okay? That's how this works. That's how these upper extensions work. Why? Because it's a ninth away. It's really a flat nine or a minor nine interval away from the root. So this is how upper extensions work. It's no more complex than that. You'd also sometimes see chords like this. This is another common one that gets messed up a little bit. Is C. Everything cool?
Yeah. It's not charging.
Oh. C, and then I've got, let's say, B flat. Whoops. Oh yeah. B flat, D, F. Okay, that chord would be this. I'm going to voice it in this octave, but. So I've got the 1, flat 7, 9, 11. Some people would call this C7 sus 4, but it's not really C7 sus 4. It's really a C11 chord. Or, better, even more descriptive, is a B flat major, right? That's B flat major over C. B flat major triad over a C bass note. That's more descriptive. But the chord really is a C, it actually would be a C9, 11, like that. That's how I would write it. And I would know that you're going to play this particular voicing, okay? Now you can play it in other ways. I can voice that B flat chord. I don't have to voice it in root position. I can voice it in this inversion. I can voice it. But if I voice it down there, and that F then becomes the fourth. Okay, so this is a little bit tricky because it's depending on what octave it is in determines whether it's a fourth or an 11th. So just remember, here's the key of all this stuff. This is one thing to take away. Remember, the 2 equals the 9, the 4 equals the 11, and the 6 equals the 13. If you have a flat 13, it's a flat 6, or it could be a sharp 5. Sharp 4 is the same as sharp 11. Sharp 2 is the same as sharp 9. Flat 2 is the same as flat 9. And that, so on and so forth. Okay? So, questions? Carol?
A lot of people were asking about context. Let me see. Someone said the question remains whether we should name chords by context or by its mere intervals.
That's a good question. You want to name chords so that the naming of chords are really for other people. If you're writing the tune and you're naming it, or if you're transcribing something, you want someone to play it, what you want them to do is you want to play it the most accurate. You want them to play it accurately. So if I want this particular voicing, of a C11 chord, or C, you know, I'm gonna say B flat over C. I know that I'm gonna get that voicing, okay? Just like if I played this voicing, I'm gonna call it A over B flat, okay? I could call it a generic name like a B flat tonic diminished, because that's the scale I'm gonna play over it, a whole half diminished scale. If I have this chord, I'm gonna call it a D flat major, C sharp major over A. Or I might say an A major 7 sharp 5, because it's functioned the same. Here's A major 7, there's the 5th, I'm gonna sharp it. A major 7 sharp 5, C sharp major over A are the same chord. They're just named differently. So it depends on who you're playing with, how informed the players are. And if you're playing with me, if I'm accompanying you, I'm gonna roll with C sharp over A major 7 sharp 5. You can say A leading augmented, doesn't matter to me, I know what to play in the case. But if somebody wants a really specific voicing for me to play, and I'm accompanying them, say C sharp over A, and you know you're gonna get that. Or A major 7 sharp 5, you're gonna get that. Now it does matter in particular tunes. There's I'm trying to think of examples of tunes like with major 7 sharp 5. There's a Pat Metheny tune that's off his first it's called Unity Village, and then in the bridge it goes to from E add 9 to C major 7 sharp 5. Now, C major 7 sharp 5 or E major over C, same chord, okay? That would be an instance where you would have that chord voicing, and if you look at it in the real book, I don't know if it's still in the real book, it used to be in the old version of the real book, they said, I want to say they called it they called the C major 7 sharp 5 in there. But anybody that's playing on it realizes that it's this chord. Could be in any of those inversions, it doesn't matter, it's going to give you the same sound. Carol? Anything else?
I'm waiting for people to mention questions. Okay. Randy asked, how do you write out polychords?
Great question. Let's say you have a chord, let's say you have a chord like this. Okay, that would be a polychord there. And I wrote this. What did I write here? So here's my polychord. I had a C spread triad down here. C is on the bottom. Up here is F sharp. So it's literally called F sharp major over C major. Okay, so F sharp. Now you want to make sure that you're not doing F sharp major over the bass note C. It's different. F sharp major over C would be this. But this is, that's F sharp major over C major. Okay, so you're going to want to say, you can put a triangle for triad over C major triad. Okay? That would be how you would write a polychord, F sharp major over C sharp major. It could be anything. I mean, there's many, many different types of polychords. There are more complex polychords to write. I'll give you an example. I might play a chord like this. Okay, that's a much more complex polychord. I have B flat quartal in the top, okay? B flat, E flat, A flat. So I've got, let's see here, I'll write it here. Well, I want to separate them. I'll do it here. B flat, E flat, A flat. And then my low E is down here. I did E, B, G. Okay? Well, E, B, G is this. That's an E minor chord in spread triad. E, B, G, E minor. So it's B flat quartal over E minor. That's a very, very hip sound. B flat Q. Okay, that means 2 perfect fourths above B flat over E minor. So I'd write it just like that. B flat. Whoops. Sorry. There, that gives me the, I know it's E minor down there, I know it's an E minor triad, and I know this is B flat quartal, so it's a 3 note with 2 fourths stacked on top. So those are more, that would be a more complex polychords. You can have things like double polychords too. If any of you have seen any of these videos that I did with my son Dylan a couple of years back, where I play 12 note chords and I do these things called double polychords. I can't do it because I need a sustain pedal to do it, but I'll play a chord for him with 2 different polychords. I'll play one in the low register, one in the high register. I go boom, boom, and Dylan will say, okay, that's blah, blah, blah over blah, blah, blah over blah, blah, blah over blah, blah, blah. And he aims from the top triads down to the bottom ones, if they're triads or whatever they are. But he has to determine whether they are polychords. But I'll say, like, I'm going to play a double polychord or something. I don't even know if I said that. I'll just say, what is this chord? Boom, boom, and I'll play 2 different polychords at the same time. So, once again, you just have to describe whether it's a major triad. You have to do something to denote that it's actually a triad. If you just put on the bass, on the top side of a slash chord, you know that the top one is going to be a triad. It could be a major, minor, you know. If I have, you know, E over C, okay, there's 2 different things. E over C could be this, or it could be this, which is a totally different sound, right? Or this. C major, E major, or even better, add the A in there. That would be an A sus2, A major 7 sus2 over C major. That's a great sound. Any other questions? I think we're good for today. Beato book, 30% off. CK876 is the discount code. 40% off my 2 courses. If you have any questions, forum.rickbeato.com is my forum that I have that people post questions all the time on. If you want to see a particular video, what makes this song great, a particular band, anything like that, there's places to put it. There's hundreds of people that post on there. Feel free to go there and post anytime you want. Just make an account. And if you want, make an account with your YouTube name so that people can find you on there. And feel free to post your own music there. If you want people, there's places to post your own music for people that follow my channel. And on my second channel, I sometimes will feature other people's music that follow the channel. I'll do 2 hours and play your music. I'll go from one to the next. Anyways, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. Carol, you want to sign us out here?
Sure.
And thank Carol, everybody.
You're welcome, guys.